Jiho stood at the viewing window of the transport ship, watching the massive station grow larger against the black canvas of space. Unity's crown. The name sounded peaceful, but his stomach twisted with nerves. At 19 years old, he was the youngest member of Earth's diplomatic team, and he knew what that meant. Everyone would be watching him. Everyone would be judging. "Stop worrying so much," Hana said from behind him. She was his mentor, a woman in her 40s who had spent 20 years working with alien species. Her voice was kind, but firm. "You earned your place here, Jiho. Remember that." He nodded, but didn't turn away from the window. The station was enormous, shaped like a flower with 12 petals stretching out from a central hub. Each petal housed a different alien species. Somewhere in there, Earth would be judged, humanity would be judged, and he would be standing at the center of it all. The Galactic Hunting Guild. That's what they were here for. It wasn't just about hunting animals. It was about proving your species had what it took to survive. To be strong, to be worthy of respect among the stars. For 300 years, humanity had been asking for admission. For 300 years, they had been denied. Today was different. Today, Earth had finally been granted a trial. The docking process took an hour. When the doors finally opened, Jiho followed Hana into a corridor that seemed to stretch forever. The walls glowed with a soft blue light. The air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet he couldn't name. His heart pounded in his chest. Other humans walked with them. Seo-jun, another cadet, kept his distance from Jiho. They had trained together back on Earth, but Seo-jun had always been better at everything. Faster. Stronger. More confident. Seo-jun should have been the one chosen for this mission. And everyone knew it. The fact that Jiho was here instead created a tension between them that neither addressed. The corridor opened into a massive chamber. Jiho stopped walking, his mouth falling open. The room was circular, with a ceiling so high he could barely see it. Hundreds of aliens filled the space. They came in every shape and size imaginable. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4 or 6 or 8. Some had scales, others had fur or skin that looked like rock or crystal. The noise was overwhelming: clicks, hisses, roars, and sounds that hurt his ears. At the center of the room stood a raised platform. A creature waited there, tall and covered in gray fur, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed yellow. The Guildmaster. "Terrans," the Guildmaster's voice boomed through a translator. "You have come to petition for entry into the Hunting Guild. Step forward." Hana moved first, and Jiho followed. His legs felt weak. Every eye in the room seemed fixed on him. As they reached the platform, he heard the whispers start, then the laughter. A massive reptilian creature stepped forward from the crowd. Its scales were deep red, and its mouth was filled with teeth longer than Jiho's fingers. This was Vorn, representative of the Kravesh people. Vorn looked at Jiho and made a sound like rocks grinding together. The translator rendered it as laughter. "This," Vorn said, pointing a clawed hand at Jiho. "This is what Terrans send to prove their worth? Look at it. No claws. No fangs. Soft skin that tears like wet paper. It cannot even see properly in the dark." More laughter rippled through the crowd. Jiho felt heat rising in his face, but he kept his expression neutral. Hana had taught him that. Never show weakness. Never show fear. "Humans are not built like you," Hana said calmly. "But that doesn't mean we're weak." "Not weak?" A different alien spoke up. This one, covered in what looked like blue armor plating. "Your species has no natural weapons. No venom. No speed. You are prey animals who learn to use tools. That is all." "Prey animals playing at civilization," Vorn agreed. And the crowd laughed harder. Jiho wanted to speak, to defend humanity, but the words stuck in his throat. What could he say? Everything they said was technically true. Humans didn't have claws or fangs. They weren't the fastest or the strongest. Compared to most species in the galaxy, they seemed fragile. He glanced at Seo-jun, hoping for support, but Seo-jun had moved away, standing near the back of their group. The message was clear. Seojun didn't want to be associated with this humiliation. The guildmaster raised one of its 4 hands, and the laughter died down. The Galactic Hunting Guild exists to honor those species who can survive the harshest environments, who can hunt and be hunted, who can prove their strength against nature itself. The yellow eyes fixed on Jiho. Young Terran, do you believe your species belongs among us? Jiho's mouth was dry. He felt Hana's encouraging presence beside him. But this question was directed at him alone. He thought about backing down, about saying they weren't ready, about saving himself from further embarrassment. Instead, he spoke. Yes, the word came out stronger than he expected. Vorn laughed again, but Jiho continued. We might not have claws or scales, Jiho said. But we're still here. Humans survived ice ages and droughts. We crossed oceans in wooden boats. We climbed the highest mountains, just to see what was on the other side. We didn't give up when things got hard. We never give up. Vorn's laughter turned into a snort. Pretty words. But words mean nothing in the wild. The guildmaster nodded slowly. The Kravesh speaks truth. Words are not enough. It paused. And the entire chamber fell silent. Therefore, we propose a trial. Young Terran, you will be sent to Cathera Prime. You will survive for 48 hours alongside champions from other species. If you succeed, humanity's petition will be considered. If you fail, if he fails, Vorn said with a grin that showed all those terrible teeth, then Terrans will not petition again for 100 years. Your species will be marked as unworthy. Jiho's blood ran cold. 100 years. If he failed, he wouldn't just embarrass himself. He would doom humanity's chances for multiple generations. But what choice did he have? If he refused, the result would be the same. I accept, he said. Hana grabbed his arm. Jiho, wait. But it was too late. The guildmaster nodded. It is agreed. The trial will begin at dawn tomorrow. Prepare yourself, young Terran. Cathara Prime does not forgive weakness. The chamber erupted in noise again. Some aliens seemed excited. Others looked satisfied, as if they had just watched someone sign their own death warrant. Jiho stood frozen on the platform, realizing what he had just done. He had 48 hours to prove that humanity deserved respect. 48 hours to survive a death world. 48 hours to show that humans were more than just prey animals with tools. As the crowd dispersed, Vorn walked past him. The massive Kravesh leaned down, bringing its face close to Jiho's. I almost feel sorry for you, little Terran. Almost. Then, it walked away. Laughing, Jiho watched it go. His hands were shaking, but he clenched them into fists. He wouldn't let them see his fear. He couldn't. Hana pulled him aside, away from the others. Her face was tight with worry. Do you understand what you've agreed to? Cathara Prime has killed experienced hunters. It's one of the deadliest worlds in the known galaxy. I know, Jiho said quietly. Then why? Because someone had to, he said, meeting her eyes. And they chose me. I can't back down now. Hana stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Then we have one night to prepare you. Let's not waste it. As they walked back toward their quarters, Jiho looked back at the chamber one last time. Tomorrow, everything would change. Either he would prove himself, or he would die trying. There was no third option. The dropship shook violently as it entered Cathara Prime's atmosphere. Jiho gripped the safety harness, his knuckles white. Through the small window, he could see the planet below a world of dense green jungle, dark mountains, and storms that looked like bruises on the landscape. 30 seconds to drop. The pilot's voice crackled through the speaker. Jiho checked his gear one more time. A knife, barely longer than his hand. A water purifier the size of his thumb. An emergency beacon that would call for extraction if he pressed it, which would also mean automatic failure. The rules were clear. 48 hours. No help. Survive. The other hunters sat across from him. Vorn, the massive red Kravesh, took up 2 seats. The reptilian warrior's muscles rippled under its scales. Next to Vorn sat Thex, an insectoid creature with 4 arms and compound eyes that never seemed to blink. At the end sat Rilna, whose blue-gray skin looked wet even in the dry air of the ship. She came from a water world and breathed through slits in her neck. None of them looked at Jiho. To them, he was already dead. 10 seconds. The floor beneath Jiho's feet opened. Wind roared up through the gap. His heart hammered against his ribs. Go. Jiho dropped. The fall lasted only seconds before his emergency chute deployed, but it felt like forever. The jungle rushed up to meet him. He hit the ground hard, rolled, and came up gasping. The chute tangled in the trees above him. He cut it loose with his knife and looked around. The air was thick and hot. It pressed against his skin like a wet blanket. Every sound seemed amplified, buzzing insects, strange bird calls, the rustle of leaves. The gravity was stronger here than on Earth, making his legs and back ache. Every step would be harder. Every movement would cost more energy. Through the trees, he heard crashes as the other hunters landed. Vorn's roar echoed through the jungle. The Kravesh was announcing its presence, challenging anything nearby to fight. That was their way. Loud, aggressive, dominant. Jiho moved quietly in the opposite direction. Fighting wasn't his goal. Survival was. He walked for an hour, studying everything around him. The plants here were wrong. Leaves that moved when nothing touched them. Flowers that smelled like rotting meat. Vines that seemed too thick and too evenly spaced to be natural. This wasn't just a dangerous world. It was actively hostile. He found a stream and knelt beside it. The water looked clear, but he didn't trust it. Using his purifier, he filled his small container and drank carefully. The water was cold and tasted like minerals. He drank slowly, knowing he needed to make it last. As the sun began to set, Jiho searched for shelter. He found a spot where 3 large trees grew close together, their roots creating a natural hollow. He gathered dry wood, checking each piece carefully for insects or other dangers. Then he started a fire. It took time. He used the friction method, spinning a stick against a flat piece of wood. His hands were already sore from the work. But eventually, smoke appeared. Then a spark. Then flame. He fed it carefully until he had a small fire burning. From above, in orbit, Yuna watched through monitors. She was part of the observation team, tracking all the hunters. When she saw Jiho make fire without modern tools, she leaned closer to the screen. Did he just use friction? Her colleague laughed. Primitive method. Won't help him much. Maybe, Yuna said quietly, but she didn't look away from the screen. In the jungle, Jiho sat by his fire and began to work. He cut a straight branch and used his knife to sharpen one end into a point. It wasn't much, but now he had a spear. Something with reach, something better than just his hands. Night fell completely. The jungle came alive with sounds. Screams. Howls. Things moving through the darkness. Jiho added more wood to his fire and stayed alert. He didn't sleep. He couldn't afford to. Somewhere in the distance, he heard Vorn shouting. The Kravesh was hunting something. Challenging it. Then silence. Then a roar of triumph. Vorn had made a kill. Jiho kept his fire burning and waited for dawn. When the sun finally rose, he was exhausted but alive. He drank more water, ate a small emergency ration from his pack, and continued moving. He needed to cover ground. Needed to find food. The rations wouldn't last 2 days. He found fruit hanging from a tree. It looked safe enough other creatures had been eating it, leaving bite marks on the fallen ones. Jiho took one and bit into it carefully. It was sour and made his mouth pucker, but it wasn't poisonous. He ate 3 more and saved 2 for later. By midday, the heat was unbearable. Jiho was sweating heavily, which meant he needed more water. He found another stream and refilled his container. As he drank, he noticed something. The other hunters weren't anywhere near him. No sounds. No signs of them. That's when he saw the tracks. They were huge, 3-toed. Deep impressions in the soft earth. Whatever made them was heavy and powerful. Jiho knelt down and studied them. The tracks were fresh made within the last hour, and they were heading in the direction of the extraction point, where all the hunters were supposed to gather at the end of 48 hours. Something big was in this jungle. Something that wasn't part of the trial. Jiho followed the tracks carefully. He moved slowly, checking each step. The tracks led him to a clearing where the ground was torn up. There had been a fight here. He saw blood, black blood that steamed in the hot air. But whose blood? What had fought here? A sound made him freeze. A low clicking noise, like rocks tapping together. It came from the trees above. Jiho looked up slowly. Yellow eyes stared down at him. 6 yellow eyes, all unblinking. The creature dropped from the tree and landed 20 feet away. It was massive. Built like a bear, but wrong. Its body was covered in armored plates. Its mouth had too many teeth, and it was looking at Jiho like he was food. Jiho raised his spear, but his hands were shaking. This thing was 3 times his size. His little wooden spear wouldn't even scratch it. The creature charged. Jiho ran. He crashed through the jungle, branches whipping his face. Behind him, the creature roared. It was fast. Too fast. Jiho's lungs burned. His legs screamed. The stronger gravity made everything harder, but he kept running. He ran for what felt like hours. His vision blurred. His mouth tasted like copper. But he didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Behind him, the creature's roars grew fainter. Finally, he collapsed beside a tree, gasping. His whole body shook. He waited for the creature to catch up, to finish him, but it didn't come. Slowly, Jiho realized something. The creature had stopped chasing him. It had given up. He lay there, staring up at the canopy, and started to laugh. It was a weak, exhausted sound. That creature had been faster, stronger, better armed. But Jiho had outlasted it. He had run until it couldn't keep up. "I'm still alive," he whispered to himself. As the second night approached, Jiho found the other hunters. They had set up camp near a cliff face. When they saw him stumble into the clearing, Vorn stood up. "The Terran lives," the Kravesh said, sounding almost disappointed. "I thought you would be dead by now." "May again." "Not yet," Jiho said. He was too tired to care what Vorn thought. Thex clicked its mandibles. "You look terrible." "I ran into something big." Rilna's neck slits flared. "What kind of something?" "I don't know. But it's out there. Hunting." Vorn laughed. "There are many things hunting here, little Terran. That is the point." But Rilna looked worried. She had seen tracks too. And she knew, like Jiho knew, that something was wrong in this jungle. That night, they took turns keeping watch. When it was Jiho's turn, he sat by the fire and stared into the darkness. Somewhere out there, something was moving. Something that shouldn't be here. And tomorrow, they would have to face it. He tightened his grip on his spear and added more wood to the fire. 24 hours left. He just had to survive 24 more hours. In orbit, Yuna watched the monitors and chewed her lip. She had seen the large tracks too, through the scanner data. She knew what they meant. A Vrask, one of the galaxy's deadliest predators, was loose on that planet, and none of the hunters knew what they were really facing. She reached for the communicator, then stopped. The rules were clear. No interference. No help. The hunters were on their own. "Please survive," she whispered, looking at Jiho's tired face on the screen. "Please." Dawn came with screaming. Jiho jolted awake, grabbing his spear. The camp was in chaos. Thex was on the ground, one of its 4 arms bent at a wrong angle. Rilna was shouting something in her own language, and Vorn, the massive, confident Kravesh warrior, was backing away from the tree line with its eyes wide. "What happened?" Jiho scrambled to his feet. "It came in the dark." Rilna gasped. Her skin had turned pale gray. "We didn't even see it until..." A roar cut her off. It was deeper than anything Jiho had heard before. It didn't sound like the creature from yesterday. This was something else. Something worse. The trees exploded as the creature burst into the clearing. Jiho's mind went blank for a second. The thing was enormous, twice the size of Vorn, with 6 legs and a body covered in black scales that seemed to drink in the light. Its head was all mouth and teeth, but the eyes, those were what froze Jiho's blood. Intelligence burned in those eyes. This wasn't just an animal. This was a hunter that thought, planned, killed with purpose. Vrask, Vorn breathed. The word came out like a prayer. Or a curse. The Vrask fixed its gaze on them and made a sound like stones grinding. Then it charged. Everyone scattered. Thex tried to run despite its injury and collapsed. The Vrask was on it in seconds. Jiho didn't see what happened next. He was too busy running with Rilna toward the cliff face. Behind them, Thex's screams cut off abruptly. "We have to help," Jiho started. "It's too late." Rilna grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "That's a Vrask. We can't fight it." Vorn had reached the cliff and was climbing, those powerful claws digging into rock. The Kravesh warrior, who had mocked Jiho just days ago, was fleeing in terror. The Vrask finished with Thex and turned its attention to the rest of them. It moved slowly now, almost casually. It knew they were trapped. Jiho's mind raced. Fight or flight. Fighting was suicide. Running would just delay death. Unless... "The fire!" Jiho shouted. "Get the fire!" He ran back to the camp where the fire still burned. The Vrask tracked him with its eyes but didn't charge. It was playing with them, enjoying their fear. Jiho grabbed a burning branch and waved it. The flames crackled. The Vrask paused, just for a second. But it was enough to show Jiho something important. Fire made it cautious. "Rilna, make noise, throw things." Rilna understood. She began shouting and hurling rocks. Vorn, seeing what they were doing, roared from the cliff face. The combination of fire, noise, and movement seemed to confuse the Vrask. It shifted its weight, uncertain. Jiho grabbed another burning branch and threw it directly at the creature. It landed near the Vrask's feet. The creature jumped back, hissing. "Go," Jiho screamed. "Run now." Rilna bolted toward the trees. Vorn scrambled down from the cliff and followed. But the Vrask recovered quickly. Its eyes locked on Jiho, the one who had challenged it, who had thrown fire at it, the one who needed to be taught a lesson. It charged directly at Jiho. Every instinct told Jiho to freeze, to give up. This thing was too big, too fast, too deadly. But another part of his brain, the part that had kept his ancestors alive on the African plains millions of years ago, kicked in. He ran, not away from the Vrask, but at an angle. He ran toward the stream, toward the densest part of the jungle. The Vrask followed, roaring with rage. In orbit, Yuna stood up from her chair. "What is he doing? He can't outrun a Vrask." Her colleague shook his head. "He's going to die, just like the others." But Yuna leaned closer to the monitors. "Wait, look at his pace. He's not sprinting. He's pacing himself?" Jiho's lungs burned. His legs ached. The stronger gravity pulled at every muscle. But he kept his breathing steady. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Don't sprint, don't stop, just keep moving. Behind him, the Vrask crashed through the jungle like a living avalanche. It was faster than Jiho. Stronger. More powerful. But Jiho had something it didn't: endurance. Humans had evolved to run down prey on the hottest plains on Earth. They had evolved to sweat to cool their bodies while running. To keep going long after other predators gave up. It was called persistence hunting, and it was humanity's oldest talent. Jiho ran for an hour. The Vrask stayed close, roaring and snapping its jaws. But it was starting to slow down. Vrask were ambush predators, built for explosive power and short chases. They weren't built for marathons. Jiho ran for 2 hours, his vision blurred, his legs felt like they were on fire. But the Vrask's roars were getting quieter, more distant. He ran for 3 hours, then 4. The sun climbed higher, the jungle steamed with heat, Jiho's shirt was soaked with sweat, but that sweat was keeping him cool. His body was doing exactly what millions of years of evolution had designed it to do. The Vrask, covered in scales and unable to sweat, was overheating. After 5 hours, Jiho heard something different. Not a roar. A wheezing sound. He risked a glance back. The Vrask had stopped running. It stood 50 yards behind him, its massive sides heaving. Its mouth hung open. Even from this distance, Jiho could see it was exhausted. They stared at each other. The ancient predator and the young human. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the Vrask turned and walked away. It didn't run. Didn't charge. It simply left. Disappearing into the jungle, Jiho collapsed to his knees. His whole body shook. He wanted to throw up. He wanted to cry. He wanted to sleep for a week. Instead, he just knelt there in the mud, gasping. He had done it. He had survived. Not by being stronger or faster or more dangerous, but by simply refusing to stop. It took him an hour to recover enough to move. He drank water until his stomach hurt, then drank more. He found some of that sour fruit and forced himself to eat. His body needed fuel. Then he started walking back toward the extraction point. He moved slowly, carefully. The trial wasn't over yet. He still had hours to go. As the sun began to set, he found Rilna and Vorn. They had made it to the extraction zone early and were waiting. When they saw Jiho stumble out of the jungle, both of them stared. "You're alive," Rilna said. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Like his survival violated the laws of nature. Vorn approached slowly. The massive Kravesh warrior looked at Jiho with something new in its eyes. Not mockery, not contempt, respect. "The Vrask," Vorn said quietly. "You led it away. You saved us." "I saved myself," Jiho corrected. "You just happened to benefit." "How?" Rilna demanded. "How did you survive? A Vrask should have killed you in seconds." "I ran." "That's impossible. You can't outrun a Vrask." "I didn't," Jiho said, sitting down heavily. "I outlasted it." "There's a difference." Vorn made a sound that might have been a laugh. "The prey became the hunter. The weak became strong. I have misjudged your species, young Terran." Before Jiho could respond, the jungle rustled again. All three of them grabbed their weapons, ready for another attack. But what emerged wasn't attacking. The Vrask stepped into the clearing. But its posture was different now, not aggressive, almost respectful. It looked directly at Jiho. Then, slowly, deliberately, it lowered its head. A gesture. A sign. "What is it doing?" Rilna whispered. Vorn's voice was filled with awe. "It is giving the hunter's salute. I have only heard of this in stories. Vrask do not bow. They do not show respect. They are solitary killers who acknowledge no equals." The Vrask raised its head and made a sound, not a roar, but something else. Something that sounded almost like speech. A translator device on Vorn's belt flickered to life. "You run. Like the old ones." The Vrask's voice was deep and rough. "You hunt. With time. Not strength. Not speed. Time." Jiho stared at the creature that had tried to kill him. "I just wanted to survive." "All prey runs," the Vrask said. "But you run with purpose. With patience. You are not prey, young one. You are hunter. Different, but hunter." The Vrask approached Jiho. He wanted to back away but forced himself to stand still. The creature was massive up close, its breath hot on his face. Then the Vrask did something that made both Rilna and Vorn gasp. It extended one clawed hand, and carefully, gently, scored a shallow mark on Jiho's shoulder, not deep enough to seriously injure, but enough to leave a scar. "Brother of the hunt," the Vrask said. Then it turned and walked back into the jungle. Jiho touched his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers, but he wasn't afraid. He looked at Vorn and Rilna. Both of them stared at him like they were seeing him for the first time. The trial ends in 6 hours, Jiho said. I suggest we all stay alive until then. Neither of them argued. The extraction ship arrived exactly on time. Jiho watched it descend through the morning mist, its engines washing the clearing with warm air. His shoulder still throbbed where the Vrask had marked him. Rilna had wrapped it with cloth torn from her own pack. The gesture had surprised him. You'll want to keep that scar, she had said. Not many beings can claim a Vrask showed them respect. Now, as the ship's door opened, Jiho felt his exhaustion hit him like a wave. 48 hours. He had survived. Barely. But he had done it. Vorn climbed aboard first, moving stiffly. The proud Kravesh warrior had barely spoken since the Vrask encounter. When Jiho followed, Vorn caught his arm. I was wrong about your kind, Vorn said quietly. I have fought many battles, killed many enemies. But what you did, I could not have done that. None of my people could have. Jiho didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. The flight back to Unity's crown was silent. Rilna stared out the window. Vorn cleaned his claws methodically. And Jiho tried to process everything that had happened. He thought about Thex, who hadn't survived. He thought about the fear in everyone's eyes when the Vrask appeared. And he thought about that final moment when a deadly predator had called him brother. When they docked at the station, Hana was waiting. She pulled Jiho into a tight hug before he even fully stepped off the ship. I watched everything, she said, her voice thick. When that Vrask charged, I thought. She stopped, unable to finish. I'm okay, Jiho said. Tired. But okay. You did more than okay. She pulled back and looked at his shoulder. Is that a Vrask mark? Vorn said from behind them. Your young one earned it. The Galactic Hunting Guild convened 3 hours later. Jiho stood in the same chamber where he had been mocked just days before. But something was different now. The aliens didn't laugh. They didn't whisper. They watched him with careful attention. The Guildmaster called the chamber to order. The trial on Cathara Prime is complete. Of the 4 hunters who entered, 3 have returned. We will now hear testimony. Rilna spoke first. I have hunted on 17 worlds. I have faced predators that would terrify most species. But I have never seen anything like what the Terran did. He saved my life using primitive methods that shouldn't have worked. But they did. Vorn stood next. The massive Kravesh looked uncomfortable speaking, but his voice was firm. I shamed this human before the trial. I called his species weak. I was wrong. The Terran hunts differently than we do, not with claws or strength. He hunts with patience, with endurance, with intelligence. These are not lesser weapons. They are simply different. And perhaps, he paused, perhaps more dangerous. A murmur went through the crowd. Vorn, the Kravesh champion, admitting a human was dangerous? It was unthinkable. The Guildmaster turned to Jiho. Do you have anything to add, young Terran? Jiho stepped forward. His legs still ached. His shoulder burned, but his voice was steady. I'm not the strongest hunter here. I'm not the fastest or the most dangerous, but I'm still standing. My ancestors survived because they could outlast anything that tried to kill them. That's what humans do. We endure. We adapt. We survive. If that's not worthy of the hunting guild, then I don't know what is. Ah, the chamber fell silent. Then, from the back, a door opened. Everyone turned. A figure entered the chamber, and the silence turned into shocked gasps. It was massive, easily the size of Vorn, but built differently. Black scales, 6 legs, eyes that burned with intelligence. The Vrask had come to Unity's crown. This is unprecedented, the Guildmaster said. Vrask do not attend guild proceedings. They do not interact with other species. Unless there is something worth saying, the Vrask interrupted. Its voice echoed through the chamber. I am Korath. I have hunted for 3 centuries across 100 worlds. I have never attended these gatherings. They bore me, but today, I come to speak of the human. Every eye turned to Korath. then to Jiho. Korath approached the platform where Jiho stood. Up close, the Vrask was even more terrifying than Jiho remembered. But he didn't back away. "Young hunter," Korath said. "Do you know why I tested you in the jungle?" "You were hunting," Jiho said. "That's what Vrask do." "Yes. But I was also watching. When you ran from me, I expected you to tire quickly. All species tire. They sprint until their legs fail, and then they die. But you," Korath's eyes gleamed, "you ran differently. You paced yourself. You cooled your body with water from your skin. You kept going long after you should have collapsed. Do you know what this means?" Jiho shook his head. "It means you hunt like the old ones." Before the Vrask ruled the dark worlds, there were other hunters, ancient species, now gone. They hunted by pursuit, by patience. They would track prey for days, weeks, never stopping, until the prey fell from exhaustion. We thought that way of hunting was extinct, but it lives in your species, in you. Korath turned to address the entire chamber. "I have killed warriors from every species in this room. Kravesh, Thex, Rilna's people. All of them fell before me. But this human made me stop hunting him. Not because he defeated me with strength, but because he would not stop. He would have run until one of us died. That kind of determination is rare, and it is deadly." The Vrask approached Jiho again and lowered its head. "I marked you as brother because you earned it. The Terran species does not hunt like other species. They are not powerful in the moment, but give them time." Korath's voice dropped to something like awe, "and they become the most dangerous hunters in the galaxy, because they will never stop. They will never give up, and eventually, their prey always falls." Korath turned back to the Guildmaster. "If you reject humanity from the hunting guild, you are fools. These beings weaponize time itself. They kill with patience, and any species that can make a Vrask retreat deserves not just admission, but respect." The chamber erupted in noise, arguments, exclamations, debates. The Guildmaster raised its 4 hands for silence. "The Vrask has spoken," the Guildmaster said. "This has never happened before. A Vrask has never advocated for any species. The weight of these words," it paused, "cannot be ignored." The Guildmaster looked at Jiho. "The Galactic Hunting Guild recognizes humanity's right to membership. Your trial is passed. Your species is accepted." The chamber exploded with sound. Some aliens cheered. Others protested. But Jiho barely heard any of it. He had done it. Humanity was accepted. After 300 years of trying, they had finally proven themselves worthy. Hana was at his side instantly, tears streaming down her face. Seojun pushed through the crowd and stopped in front of Jiho. The rival cadet looked at the ground. "I'm sorry," Seojun said quietly. "I should have supported you. I was afraid of being associated with failure. But you didn't fail. You showed everyone what humans can really do. I was wrong to distance myself." Jiho extended his hand. "We're all learning, including me." Seojun gripped his hand firmly. "Next time, I'll stand with you. No matter what." As the chamber slowly emptied, Korath approached Jiho one last time. "Your trial is complete here, young brother. But the real hunt never ends. When you are ready, when you have learned more about what your species can truly do, find me. We have much to teach each other." "Teach each other?" Jiho asked. "What could I teach a Vrask?" Korath's laugh was like rocks grinding. "You already taught me that power is not everything. That patience defeats strength. These are lessons I thought I knew. But you reminded me of their truth. In return, I will teach you how to track, how to read the signs, how to understand the prey. Together, we could become something new. Something neither of our species has seen before." With that, Korath turned and walked away. The crowd parted for him, everyone giving the legendary hunter space. Jiho watched him go and touch the mark on his shoulder. "Brother of the hunt." The words echoed in his mind. "Come on, Hana said gently. Let's get you to medical. That shoulder needs proper treatment. And then? Jiho asked. And then we go home, to Earth, where a lot of people are going to want to hear your story. As they walked through the corridors of Unity's crown, Jiho noticed something. The aliens they passed no longer stared at him with contempt or amusement. Now they looked at him with curiosity. Some even nodded respectfully. Humanity had changed its position in the galaxy in just 48 hours. And Jiho had been the one to do it. He thought about his younger sister, Minji, back on Earth. She had always wanted to go to space. Now, because of what he had done, the path would be easier for her. For all humans, the weight of that responsibility settled on his shoulders, but unlike the weight of the stronger gravity on Cathara Prime, this weight felt right. He wasn't just Jiho anymore. He was a guild hunter, brother of the hunt, and he carried humanity's reputation with him. It was a burden he would bear with pride. The transport ship carrying Jiho home broke through Earth's atmosphere 3 weeks after the trial. He sat by the window, watching clouds stream past, and felt something tight in his chest loosen. Home. After everything that had happened, he was finally coming home. You're famous, you know, Hana said from across the cabin. She held up her datapad, showing dozens of news feeds. All of them featured Jiho's face. They're calling you the endurance runner, the human who made a Vrask retreat. Every major news network wants an interview. Jiho winced. I just did what I had to do. That's what makes you perfect for this, Hana smiled. You're not doing it for glory. That makes people trust you more. When they landed at the Seoul spaceport, Jiho wasn't prepared for what waited. Thousands of people crowded the arrival area. They held signs. They cheered. Some were crying. When Jiho stepped off the ship, the roar of the crowd was deafening. Security moved him quickly through the throng. But he caught glimpses of the signs. Humanity's hunter. We run forever. Proud to be human. The emotions on people's faces. Pride, joy, relief overwhelmed him. His family waited in a private room. When Jiho saw them, everything else faded away. His mother pulled him into a hug so tight he could barely breathe. His father gripped his shoulder, the same one marked by Korath, and his eyes were wet. And Minji, his little sister who had always looked up to him, stared at him like he was someone new. You really did it, Minji said. You really showed them we're not weak. We were never weak, Jiho said. We just hunt differently. The days that followed were a blur. Interviews, ceremonies, awards. The president of Korea gave him a medal. The United Earth Council made him a youth ambassador. Universities offered him scholarships, but through it all, Jiho felt disconnected, like he was watching someone else's life. The real moment that mattered came 2 weeks later. Seojun arrived at Jiho's family home unannounced. He stood at the door, looking uncomfortable. Can we talk? Seojun asked. They walked to a nearby park and sat on a bench, overlooking the city. For a long time, neither spoke. I was jealous, Seojun finally said. When they chose you for the mission instead of me, I was angry. I thought I deserved it more. I was better in every physical test. Faster. Stronger. So when they mocked you at Unity's crown, part of me thought, maybe they're right. Maybe they should have sent me instead. Jiho didn't respond. He just listened. But watching what you did on Cathara Prime, Seojun continued, I realized something. I would have failed. If I had been there instead of you, I would have tried to fight that Vrask. I would have tried to prove I was strong, and I would have died. He looked at Jiho. You survived because you understood something I didn't. Strength isn't just about muscles or speed. It's about knowing when to fight and when to endure. It's not about being better than you, Jiho said quietly. We're just different. The galaxy needs both kinds of humans. Seojun smiled. That's exactly what I mean. You don't even see this as a competition. That's why you were chosen. That's why you succeeded. He extended his hand. Friends? Jiho gripped his hand firmly. Friends. A month after returning home, Jiho received a message through official guild channels. It was from Korath. The Vrask's words were simple. When you are ready to learn, come find me. The stars are wide, and there is much to hunt. Jiho stared at the message for a long time. Part of him wanted to stay on Earth, to enjoy his new life. But another part, the part that had run for 6 hours through an alien jungle, knew he couldn't stay still forever. He found Hana at the Earth Diplomatic Center. She was preparing for another mission, organizing data on her desk. I want to go back, Jiho said, to space, to continue learning. Hana looked up, unsurprised. I figured you would. The question is, are you ready? What you did was incredible, but it was also survival instinct. Real diplomatic work, real hunting partnerships, those require training. Then train me, Jiho said. Properly this time. I want to represent humanity the right way. Hana smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. The guild has already requested you for a joint training program. 6 months. With different species. Learning their hunting methods. Vorn specifically asked if you'd spend time with the Kravesh. He wants to understand human endurance hunting. And Korath, he's invited you to hunt with him when you're ready. But Jiho. Hana's expression became serious. That's not an invitation given lightly. Vrask are solitary by nature. If Korath is offering to hunt alongside you, it means he sees potential for something significant. Don't take that responsibility lightly. I won't, Jiho promised. 3 months later, Jiho stood on Unity's crown again. But this time, he wasn't a nervous cadet. He was a guild hunter, dressed in the official uniform simple but marked with the symbols of his achievement. The scar on his shoulder had healed into a pale line. He touched it occasionally. Remembering, Vorn met him in the training sector. The massive Kravesh looked at Jiho and made a rumbling sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. You look different, Vorn said, more confident. Good. You'll need that. What are you going to teach me? Jiho asked. How to read tracks in any environment. How to predict prey behavior. How to strike when the moment is right. Vorn paused. And you will teach me how to run. Properly. Like you did on Cathara Prime. My people are powerful, but we tire quickly. If we could combine our strength with your endurance. The Kravesh's eyes gleamed. We would be unstoppable. The training was brutal. Jiho learned to identify hundreds of alien tracks. He learned to move silently through different gravities. He learned to predict weather patterns on hostile worlds, and in return, he taught the Kravesh about pacing, about breath control, about reading your own body's signals. After 3 months with the Kravesh, Jiho trained with Rilna's people on their water world. Then with other species, each one teaching him different skills. He learned that every hunting culture had something valuable to offer, and that humans, with their adaptability, could learn from all of them. When the 6 months ended, Jiho received another message from Korath. This one simply said, Now you are ready. Meet me at the following coordinates. The coordinates led to a wild planet on the edge of explored space. When Jiho's ship landed, Korath was waiting. The Vrask looked exactly as Jiho remembered, massive, deadly, and somehow respectful. You have trained well, Korath said, circling Jiho. I can see it in how you stand. How you move. You are not the frightened young one from Cathara Prime. I'm still learning, Jiho said. Good. The moment you stop learning is the moment you become prey. Korath gestured to the wilderness around them. This planet has creatures that challenge even me. We will hunt together. I will show you what centuries of experience have taught me, and you will show me this endurance hunting your species perfected. They hunted for 3 weeks. Jiho learned more in those weeks than he had in all his previous training. Korath taught him to read the smallest signs, a broken twig, disturbed water, the way animals avoided certain areas. The Vrask showed him how to think like prey, to anticipate their moves before they made them. In return, Jiho showed Korath the art of persistence. They tracked a massive herbivore for 5 days. Never rushing, never stopping. Korath wanted to charge multiple times. But Jiho counseled patience. On the 5th day, the creature was so exhausted it could barely move. They took it down easily. "I see now," Korath said afterwards. "Power is brief, but patience is eternal. Your species has mastered the eternal hunt." Korath, 1745. On the last night, they sat by a fire, something Korath had learned to appreciate from Jiho. The Vrask stared into the flames. "You asked what you could teach me," Korath said. "Now I understand. You teach mercy through method. You kill, but you do not make prey suffer needlessly. You end things quickly once the hunt is won. That is, different from my way. But I see its value, and you've taught me to see 100 things I would have missed," Jiho said. "To read the world like a book. We are good for each other, young brother." Korath's eyes reflected the firelight. "I think we should hunt together again. Many times. What do you say?" Korath sighed. "Gatter, I'd be honored," Jiho said. When Jiho finally returned to Earth, a full year had passed since the trial on Kethera Prime. He stepped off the transport to find Minji waiting. She wore a cadet uniform now she had enrolled in the diplomatic corps. "I'm following your path," she said, grinning. "Someone has to make sure you don't become too famous." Jiho laughed and hugged her. "The galaxy is big enough for both of us." That night, Jiho stood on the balcony of his family home and looked up at the stars. So many worlds out there. So many species. So much to learn. He thought about the mockery he had faced at Unity's crown. How they had called humans weak. Prey animals playing at civilization. But now, when he walked through the galaxy, beings stepped aside with respect. They knew what humans were capable of. They knew about the species that hunted with time itself. His datapad chimed. A new message from the guild, another mission, another chance to represent humanity and learn from other hunters. Jiho smiled. The real hunt was just beginning, and he had the rest of his life to prove that humans belonged among the stars, not as prey, not as warriors, but as the patient, enduring hunters they had always been. He touched the scar on his shoulder one more time. Brother of the Hunt. The words weren't just a title anymore. They were a promise, a reminder that humans had earned their place not through aggression, but through the quiet, unstoppable power of persistence. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for the last time, and Jiho would spend his life showing them what his species could really do. He looked up at the stars and whispered, "We're coming, and we'll never stop."